Hi, welcome to Bonita's Kitchen and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to be making today is gluten-free hard bread, also known as Hard Tack. And for those of you who's wondering what am I talking about, here in Newfoundland and Labrador we're known for our hard bread, and again it's another name on it called Hard Tack. And this is a type of bread that was used years ago by sailors when they go out on the water for a long period of time, and it was easy to store. It didn't go bad, and you can just soak it and have it with whatever meal. And in our case, we usually have it with a salt fish meal, which would also called fish and brews or fisherman's brews. So what I'm going to do now is show you a few simple ingredients. This is gluten-free, and we know that is excellent for people that can't eat the original hard bread. So let's get started. So pretty much what I'm going to do here now is show you just a small batch, because you don't need a lot of this made in advance. We're going to be using 1 cup of gluten-free flour, a teaspoonful of sea salt, a half a teaspoonful of xanthan, and then we're going to be using 1/3 cup of water. And this is our hard bread, so we don't need a lot of hydration in there. So let's get started making this delicious hard bread. So pretty much all you're going to do is put 1 cup of gluten-free flour, and flour of choice when it comes to gluten-free, it doesn't matter. We're going to be using the half a teaspoonful of the xanthan, and sticking to my little bowl there, and a teaspoonful of sea salt. So we're gonna just mix this around in there first, and then we're gonna add in the 1/3 cup at a time, a little bit at a time, of the water. Pretty much what you're doing here is just mixing that in. You may not need all of it, but just start with that much. And this, like I was saying, is a hard bread, and we don't need a lot of hydration. So now that I got it mixed a little bit with my fork, what I'm going to do now is use my hand and get this formed into a ball. And again, I didn't use quite the full amount, but just in case you can't get yours to come together, you could use it all. I'm just making it into a ball. So after you got it formed into a ball, I'm going to move my bowl out of the way, put it down on your counter, and just knead it a little tiny bit, just to make sure all of those ingredients, which is only 3, and the water, but still mixed in together. Then I'm going to get a little dusting of the gluten-free flour, because we need to roll this out. So I'm going to remove this little sleeve because it'll be moving around. So what I'm going to do is dust the countertop with a little bit of the gluten-free flour. And pretty much all I'm going to do here now is get my rolling pin and roll this out like this, and I'll tell you how thick. Now, because we're only making a small batch, we're going to be making it with just 1 cup. You can make more if you got a big family and you want to store this away and have it available when you need it. We're going to be making it 1/2 inch thick, 7 inches long, and 4 inches wide is what your dimensions is for this 1 cup. I'm just going to roll it there. And now what we're going to do is cut it into 4 pieces. So 4 pieces, and pretty much each piece is enough for 2 people when it's baked. And it, because what happens is you bake it in the oven, and then it goes hard as a rock. It's so hard, and I'll show you what that looks like. and then you soak it into water when you're ready to use it, and what happens then, it's enough for 2 people. But before we get into all that, I made little holes in there. The traditional way hard bread is, they got little vent holes in there, so it kind of not only makes it look a little fancy, it just gives it that vent to help it get really hard when it's baking. So pretty much I'm going to put it there now on a baking sheet like that. So that's pretty much all you would need to do to make this hard bread, gluten-free hard bread. And the same thing goes for regular hard bread, and I got that on Bonita's Kitchen there if you wanted to know how to make it the regular way with regular flour. But I have got so many viewers on there that can't have hard bread because there's no gluten-free hard bread out there, only what you would make yourself at this time. Maybe down the road it will be, but certain times of the year, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians love having hard bread soaked, especially Christmas Eve, having fisherman's brews or just salt fish or salt codfish and hard bread with some potato in that. So what we're going to do now is put this in the oven, preheated oven of 425 for 50 minutes or until golden brown. That's 50. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like. But before I do, I'm going to make up a quick batch of the fisherman's brews just to show you what it looks like. Now I know I can refer you to my fish and brews recipe, and we also call it fisherman's brews, but I'm going to just make it up so you can see what the hard bread looks like when it's soaked and after it's come out of the oven, and with it on the plate with the food that we would normally eat it with. So right now I got salted cod, and that's salted in a sea salt, fresh, and then stored for the winter. And again, this is a very big tradition for us Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So I'm going to put this into some hot water with a little bit of onion in there and let it just boil for maybe 10 minutes. We don't need very long, but we usually soak it overnight. I know this episode is not talking about how to cook fish and brews or fisherman's brews. It's about the gluten-free hard bread, but I want to have this with it just so as you can see. So we got that in there, and then I'm going to get the pot going here and fry up some onions and scrunchions with some butter. So I'm going to be putting a tablespoonful of butter in the pan first. And again, this episode is not talking about how to cook fish and brews or fisherman's brews. It's about hard bread. But I'm sure anyone out there that have had this meal before, they're excited to see the end result with it. So just fry up this is called salted fat pork, and we're going to fry these into small scrunchions. And when it gets reamed out a little bit, I'll take some of the oil off and then put in a small onion cut up in pieces, and we're going to make a bit of a roux. Okay, so what I did was took a little bit of the oil off the frying pan because I didn't need all of that grease. And I put in a small cut up onion, chopped into pieces, with a little bit of black pepper. And then we're going to just fry this down a little bit just until it gets tender. And then I'm going to put another little tiny bit of butter, maybe a half a teaspoonful. You don't need a full piece, just to help it fry along. And that's all you need to do with that. So that's coming along nice. So pretty much what we're doing now is getting back to the hard bread, so we don't go off track and I don't confuse you totally. So after the hard bread is baked out of the oven, I'm not waiting the full 50 minutes to show you, but this is a batch that I made in advance. It's brown, golden brown, all around, hard as a rock. I'm going to bring in a closer view for you to see what that looks like. Then I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's soaked into water to just get it hydrated again, so we can put it to this meal with the fish, potato, and the bruise. So again, once you put it in the oven, bake it for 50 minutes until it's golden brown like this, and you can see it's really brown on the bottom. It's completely hydrated or dehydrated, and this is hydrated, and then it's easy to store. If you don't want to store it in a cupboard in a cool spot, you can put it in the freezer. So after you've made it, now you're ready to have some. You're going to put a piece into some water, and about 4 hours or so soaking in water. Some people does it overnight, but it's not necessary to go overnight. It will soak apart like that. Now what I'm going to do is put this into some warm water for about 5 minutes to cook it, and that's just to warm it, and then I'm going to show you what it's all like when it's put together. So after you've taken the water off your soaked hard bread, and this is gluten-free hard bread, you see it's broken apart, now it's in pieces, so it's ready to be eaten. We're going to put it in with our salted cod just for maybe less than 5 minutes really, because the salted cod is already boiled there now. I'm going to put the lid on and let that just warm there for about, like I'm saying, about 5 minutes. Just give this a little stir. This is our scrunchions and our onions frying, and now what we'll do is get ready to plate it all together. So I hope you're all following along here and you're interested to know how to make this and how you can assemble it with a meal. And anyone that knows anything about hard bread and can't get the regular hard bread, which this is the regular hard bread here that I made, and that's on Bonita's Kitchen as well, and that's made with flour, and this one is made with gluten-free flour. This one's made with white flour. I'm going to take out now my salt fish, and which is boiled a little bit, the hard bread, scrunchions, and some potato, and show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is your salted cod that's been soaking overnight and now boiled in with half of an onion that I always put onion into everything really. This is the, make sure my pot is on there properly. This is the hard bread that is now soft bread that was soaked over like for about 4 hours and then put in with the salted cod to warm. And then we got a couple of potatoes, and then we're going to take those scrunchions and onions and pour over the top. And this is what we call a feast here in Newfoundland and Labrador, because again, Christmas Eve, this is what me and my dad would have, and you can have this, of course, this meal any time of the year, but this is it, and this is as good as it gets. Now I'm going to add a little bit more pepper to mine, because if those of you who have watched me on previous videos, I love my pepper. Might even get sneezing here in a few minutes. I'm going to put some butter on my potato and a little bit on my salted fish. So now I'm going to take a little bit of the hard bread that's now soft bread, as you can see, and a taste of my fish, because that goes with it, and a few of the scrunchions. Oh my. If my dad was here now, he'd say, move over. Give me that plate, because this is mine. Delicious. To me, I can't tell the difference between gluten-free flour and the regular flour when it comes to this hard bread. So I hope you get to try it, and if you're excited to make it, this is as good as it gets. Just wash it down with some of my tea. So this is it. I'm so glad that we brought this episode to you today for gluten-free hard bread, also known as Hard Tack. And it's not a lot of work. Again, baked in the oven for 50 minutes on 425 degrees of heat. You can store it in your freezer or in your cupboard if it's for a short period of time, because again, this is not factory made, it's made by you. So if you like it, please share, like, and let your family and friends know. And if you want to see more of our delicious meals and desserts of any kind, just go visit us on www.bonitaskitchen.com, our Facebook page, and here on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed already, the subscribe button is down at the bottom of this video, and also a link to the recipe for this and how to make fish and brews or fisherman's brews, whatever way you want to make it. And this is it. So thank you for joining us once again here on Bonita's Kitchen, from our kitchen to yours. You have a wonderful day.
Join us by the sea, a journey in culinary, always an open door. Bonita's Kitchen to yours. Bonita's Kitchen, to yours.